You've all waited for it, and now here it is. Obsessions, a series. Let's kick it off right away. Here's one way the welfare Olympians are obsessed with Black Americans. White women are too obsessed with everyone's hair but their own. They are obsessed with different braid styles, sew-ins, and even claiming a recent stake of ownership in lace front wigs. They have so much to say, but can't back it up because of their ego. And because they are so in their ego, they are too afraid to admit that they're obsessed with any and every style that Black women do. They use obsessive and demeaning and unnecessary comments like, "Is it real?" or "Is it all yours?" Insane entitlement, thinking that you can just touch a Black woman's hair, being super confused when they say no. They even laugh about it when they are told no because they are that obsessed and think that they are that entitled to touch a Black woman's hair. They literally think it's a God-given right. They demand to touch it. They will search to the very ends of their Mary Poppins bag to find a comment to say, "I promise you." White women and men do not have creative motivation. So when they see Black people have creative motivation, they become obsessed with the ideas that they see. They aren't able to breed creativity, so they become obsessed with the creative expression that they choose not to have. In simple terms, it's laziness. They are so mad and obsessed that they're now getting laws created to limit Black creative expression. All of this hate when they could just admit that they're obsessed. Now it's time to talk about the men that can't seem to take their hands off of children. And out of respect for all of the victims like myself, that's all I'll say about that. If you know, you know. As we discussed with Black women's hair, Black men's hair too bears a very odd obsession. I'm sure you've noticed at all of the various college campuses and high schools that the sudden straight hair kids now are obsessed with curly hair and a fade. A clear indicator of replicating what they see, which is simply theft. Privileged women have a tendency to hold space for such hatred within their gifts, and privileged men will unapologetically steal from a Black man, no problem. Which actually brings me to the obsession of Black man's masculinity. Privileged men are obsessed with Black men's masculinity. They obsess over the ability of the Black man to shine in any circumstance. Even at the hands of the abusers, the police. Privileged men would more than likely cross-dress before they could ever fully exude the levels of godlike masculinity that Black men naturally have. Privileged people hide their obsessions behind hatred, when they could just admit they're obsessed with Black people. Sorry for the delay, let's get right back into it. This week we're going to talk about how corporate America used their obsession as a weapon. Corporate America displayed their obsessions by creating intentional rules and regulations to limit Black people's expression in their offices. These rules were put in place to disable the natural security and posture of Black people's power, displayed with the endless creative styles and flexibility achievable with their natural hair. Forced Black women to adopt unnatural hairstyles or Eurocentric hairstyles, all to shrink and humble them. Imagine trying to dominate or shrink an area that Black women naturally dominate. I don't understand that. Black men, too, were also forced to cut their hair as well in unnatural hairstyles that made absolutely no sense in an effort to shrink their masculinity or to shrink the power that they have in the office. The obsession and the weaponization of Black people's hair is truly immature. To attack people for simply existing speaks to your inferiority, honestly. So ending this segment, to all you privileged, delusional people, I'm going to stare right into the camera. All of this hate when you could just admit that you're obsessed. On today's episode, there's not much to say, so you guys have a serious problem. Hey racists, let's talk. Racists are obsessed with having authority over Black Indigenous Americans, but they can't handle their nervous system quite yet, so they haven't done the complete overhaul that they've wanted to. They will assert aggressive yet lackluster dominance in the moment, but the second they receive that dominant energy back, they just can't handle it. They start shaking like a tree. Slurred speech. Incoherent or irrelevant resolve just to maintain control, or look like they have dominance over the situation. Their adrenal glands are just on fucking fire. Some of them even pass out because they can't handle it. Even in those recent fishing videos where Black people can't even fish in peace, they just think that they have the authority over the entire world. Even in public places, they believe that they have the authority to tell people what they can and cannot do, which is fucking crazy. You want me to honestly believe that they did not try to colonize every single piece of land? They can't stop thinking they have authority over everything. All of this hate when you could just give Black Indigenous Americans their land back and admit that you're fucking obsessed with everything they do. Everything! All right, racists, let's talk. I'm just gonna come out and say it. A majority of white people wish that they were Black. They wish that they had the ability to create or invent. They wish that they had the ability to wear a variety of hairstyles. They wish that they had the ability to dance. They wish that they had original fashion. They wish that their style was memorable. They wish that they were able to turn heads in public. They wish that they could spend more than 2 hours in the sun. They wish to be desired. They wish that they could smell as good as Black people. They wish that they were as superior as Black people. They wish that they were as athletic as Black people. Even wish that they were indigenous and could be gifted an entire planet from the Most High. They wish that they could excel at music and the arts. They wish that they could be scholars like Black people. They wish that they were as intelligent as Black people. They wish that they could even cook like Black people. They even wish that they could look as cool as Black people do in their cars, which explains why they have the windows rolled down at all fucking times. And the real big one. They really wish that they could age as gracefully as Black people do. Talk to you later. What's tea, racists? Let's talk. Racists are obsessed with staring at Black Indigenous Americans at every turn. They think that they're invisible, like their gaze doesn't carry history. But that look? That is the psychic residue of centuries of unpunished surveillance. From auction blocks to plantation porches, from boarding schools, and yes, even broken police body cams. Whiteness operates like a haunted algorithm. They are programmed to stare, to scan, to surveil. Because if they're not looking at you, they might have to look at themselves and see the rot. And when you catch them staring, they suddenly pretend like they're going to tell you the color of the sky. This is envy disguised as caution. Literally directing their head up to the sky as if they're having a conversation with God. This isn't just social awkwardness. This is fear posing as curiosity. This is the welfare Olympians putting their spiritual poverty on display in the presence of Black Indigenous brilliance. They look because they lack. They watch because they want. They fixate because deep down, they know. They know that they are guests in a world built by the very people they stare at like exhibits. So the next time one of them locks eyes on you like they're mapping your aura for resale, stare back. Smile. You're not being studied. You're being reminded of your power. And they can't stand it. Racists! You know what time it is. Let's talk. Question: why is it that when Black Americans are parked in a wide open lot, total freedom, no one around, complete isolation, that a pale chariot comes around carrying Little Red Riding Hood, who just got lost on the way to Grandma's house, pulling up right next to them? It's not just weird. It's colonial. This is what I call settler spatial behavior, or also known as punk-ass parking. It's an inherited compulsion to occupy a space that a Black body has claimed. Not because they need to, but because they must. This goes all the way back to stolen land and stolen lives, to squatting on Indigenous villages, to building suburbs on Black displacements. White comfort demands their displacement. They are programmed to follow them, sit next to them, park right next to them, ask if the seat is taken next to them. And like dogs, they're afraid to be alone. Why? Because whiteness doesn't just crave safety. It craves proximity to what it fears and envies. It's not about the parking spot. It's about the psychological need to intrude. See, in settler colonial psychology, Black solitude is unacceptable. Because if Black people are alone, they might be safe. If they're safe, they might start remembering. And if they remember, racists are in trouble. So when you're parked in divine solitude and you see them swing their magic school bus right into the divine isolation of your peace and privacy, just know this: it's not by accident. That is the same energy as building plantations next to maroon settlements. The exact same algorithm that built Starbucks over sacred earth. The same weirdos that prefer pumpkin pie over sweet potato pie. So the next time someone's creeping into your solitude like a ghost on probation, just whisper to yourself, they've always needed to sit beside the power that they've tried to erase. But now, everybody knows, and they can't park next to royalty anymore. All right, racists, let's cook. Ever notice how the most racist people are also the worst cooks? Like historically, categorically, and tragically bad? Let me explain. They're not just bad at cooking, they're culinary orphans. They've got ancestral amnesia with a dash of colonial rot. Whiteness didn't just colonize land, it also colonized the tongue. Literally. These people invaded entire continents for flavor, only to return with paprika in one hand and culinary dementia in the other. Racists didn't discover spices. They murdered civilizations for access to what they couldn't grow, couldn't understand, and still can't cook. Every racist kitchen is built on the grave of a Black American spice system they couldn't understand, never fully decoded. Because seasonings don't just taste, they mean something. They remember. And whiteness was designed to forget. Let me be clear, part 2. The kitchen is a sacred palace where nourishment for the soul is prepared. So when the soulless are touching the stove, it's a feast of nothingness and emptiness. Nutrient-deficient cuisines like soup. You genocided indigenous foodways, enslaved indigenous chefs, and outlawed communal feasting. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen? That's not casserole, honey. That's culinary Stockholm syndrome. That's trauma in a Pyrex dish. The South's soul food is Black survival science. What do racists cook? Slop, only edible to a canine. They still won't admit that okra, rice, gumbo, catfish, hot sauce, barbecue, and even mac and cheese came from indigenous hands. Racists have no chill, no flavor, no fermentation science, just bland porridge and colonial delusion. When racists sneer at Black indigenous food, it's not just ignorance. You guessed it, it's envy. They know their ancestors couldn't season liberation, let alone a fucking pork chop. That's why Karens are scared of turmeric. It's a root with memory. And whiteness is rootless by design. Racists are not just bad cooks. They're historical fugitives from flavor itself. To all my melanated chefs, my aroma angels, ancestral cooks, keep seasoning. Every dish is a spell. Every spice is a resistance. Every meal is memory restoration. Every meal is a stamp on your indigenous history. Like the story of Thanksgiving, how the original people broke bread with the undeserving pilgrims, who are still ridden with eating disorders and malnourishment today. Your recipes prove that indigenous corn that makes cornbread shines a light on the expression, breaking bread, but also shines a light on the flavorless fry bread that no one cares about. When's the last time you've ever been wowed by fry bread? You haven't, but have people been historically wowed by soul food? I'll leave you with that. All right, racists, let's have a chit-chat. Why are racist Americans so obsessed with indigenous Black intelligence? Real indigenous Black people weren't uneducated. They just weren't colonized. However, the true indigenous people have always been the most intelligent on this planet, and that's still the case today. Colonizers invented the IQ test to measure intellect when they have none. Statistically, y'all flopped on your own test. And we all know the IQ test was just the SAT for the plantation. Its job? To measure how well you do at mimicking whiteness. You can't enslave the mind and act surprised when it outgrows you. Why are racist Americans so obsessed with indigenous Black intelligence? No, really! They treat Black intellect like it's a mystery creature. Something to be caught, tested, and explained, but never respected. Meanwhile, these are the same people who couldn't even figure out hygiene without creating every terminal disease that is harmful to humans. True parasitic nature. Let's be honest. IQ tests were never neutral. They were created by white supremacists as kind of like a mental border patrol. They weren't afraid that the indigenous Black people would fall. They were afraid that they would pass and surpass white mediocrity, which they did time and time over and over and over again. Which is why the metrics were tweaked every few decades. Even renamed and rebranded the IQ test as the G factor or the cognitive aptitude test. Another goalpost move by a group of people who still struggle with following a recipe. To be expected, as it's the usual behavior of these envious, hateful reptiles who wish they had the essence of creation. When white delusionalists lose, they create another scam to manufacture superiority. Why are racist Americans obsessed with Black indigenous intelligence? Because they don't understand it and they can't stop needing it. Remember, they invented IQ tests to gatekeep intellect, not to measure it. First tested on immigrants, then weaponized against Black children. Every change in standard creation was always meant to exclude. IQ testing is not about intellect. It's about control. Black people are remembering who built the pyramids, which we know Europeans and their cave-dwelling ancestors are still unable to build basic infrastructure. Yet their low IQ makes them champion some type of Disney belief that they had something to do with the sophistication of the pyramids when they are the stars of the TV shows Hoarders and Intervention. Like, let's be serious with ourselves. The greatest home built by the only white builders, the Amish, it's a square cabin. The literal poster child for limitation. Whiteness is not a benchmark. It's a malfunction.